All right, nice to see everybody here this morning. Welcome to First Universalist Church of New Madison on this really nice, cool, brisk spring day. It was like 90 yesterday, with the beginning of May, which is kind of exciting. Tells you what we're going to be looking forward to in the summer. Do we have any announcements?
The big announcement, our boiler passed its annual state inspection. We'll be getting a new state certificate soon.
Okay.
And so I met with the gentleman, his name is Joe. The last few years I've got to know him. Big news, I understand. But one of the advantages of our new insurance policy is not only does the insurance company want to make sure our boiler is in good shape, but more importantly, they pay for our state certificate each year and pay for the inspection.
Well, thank you to the Mennonites.
Just a note.
Yes. We discussed last week at the end of service, we're going to try and go to Garst next week after the Saturday after next. Not the coming Saturday, but the Saturday after that is the tentative date.
June 4th.
June 4th. To go to Garst on Saturday afternoon. They're not open on Sunday afternoon, which would be our preferred time. So we could go have lunch and then go there. But if you're able to make it, we'll still have lunch. We can take a group consensus. We can either go to one of the restaurants, Tolly's Gastropub or whatever, or we can go to the Merchant House. There's like a million places in Greenville that you can go eat. Back in Time, I've been there a couple times for meetings. That's pretty good.
Jack's Cabin.
Yeah, it's Jack's Cabin now, and it's moved out on 36. So we can kind of vote on that. But anyway, if you can meet, we're looking at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Not this next Saturday, but the Saturday after. If you can give us some kind of idea how many people would be able to come. Mike works as a docent there occasionally, so he should give us the inside dope on the whole thing. Garst, if you haven't been there before, is it's promoted as kind of the Annie Oakley Museum, but it's really kind of a museum for Greenville. And if you know the history of Greenville, the Treaty of Greenville, Fort Greenville, there's been a lot of early American history happen in this area. Fort Jefferson, there was a fort there at one time. So if you could make that, that would be good. And anybody is invited. You don't have to be a member of the church. Anybody that hears about it is more than welcome to come.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mike, when is the big,
The gala is on the 11th.
and where to go on?
Most of it's going to be online this year, but it will be some activity there on June 11.
And that's when we're going?
We're actually going on the 4th, so we'll steer clear of that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay because the gala's on the 11th. I have on my calendar, and our visit will be planned for the 4th, the week before.
Any other announcements? Before we start, I have a complaint. I don't know what's going on with T-Mobile. I know they're changing over to 5G, but I do, from when I work from home, everything's on the internet, and the internet there is, not only is it slow, half the time it's not even there at all. So I had to, before I can put anything in my little slide program, I have to upload it to YouTube. They won't take anything that just you find generically on the internet. So, and you've seen me do this before, I had to film with my phone the little bit that I wanted you to see, and then I had to upload it to YouTube so I could have it to download it back into the PowerPoint. It took 6 hours to upload 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
I just set my phone there and plugged it in and went away and left. And I thought, well, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. When I woke up at like 3 in the morning to check, it had finally uploaded. And I started at like, I don't know, like 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. It was unbelievable. So I'm a little more disorganized than usual, which organization has never been my strong suit. And as a consequence of that, trying to get all that put together, I forgot to bring my presentation today. So I'm going to have to pull it off the computer or just make it up as I go along. So it'll be a fun day. And I use that term lightly. We had a good time with mushrooms. Now we're back into the real world. I want to start with a moment of silence for Buffalo, New York. 10 people murdered in cold blood. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And we're going to talk about what happens to the United States and what's happening to the United States and what's happening to the people in the United States and why they seem to be following down this path. That concerns, our primary example will be Tucker Carlson. If you've seen him on Fox News, we'll do a little discussion of that. So first, a moment of silence for the 10 slain and the family members who are still there without their family. So that's the focus of our slideshow. President Biden was there with his wife. That's the memorial. I'll get into that a little bit later too. All right, our prelude is number 79 if you want to follow along. No number tallies nature up. There's something about a light melodic piano that puts us in the mood for worship. I hope you're all there with me. All right, our chalice lighting, Across the Distance by Laura Thompson. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps to keep my own light burning. Together, we keep this flame of community burning bright. Our opening hymn is 138, These Things Shall Be. Okay?
Are you ready?
Hmm?
Oh, okay.
These words from John Simon, 1840 to 1893. You can see how much the language has changed in that amount of time. We still understand what he is saying and we still sympathize with it, but it is definitely unusual to see it in written form. Okay, children's story. We're putting everything together today. Let's see if any of this works. I don't want us to forget the Ukraine. We still have our sunflowers here, and this is President Zelensky, and I'm sure all of you know he was a comedian before he became president of the country, and is doing an amazing job of presenting the case for the Ukraine forcefully, but not stridently, standing up to overwhelming force against him and inspiring his people to just fight back and do what they can do. So my hat is off to him. All right. Children's story. All right, this is a little fable, and I've changed it a little bit, I hope for the better. Who will help me make some bread? A children's story about capitalism. One day, Mother Pig gathered all the farm animals together at the big red barn in the middle of the farm and asked them, "Who will help me make some bread?" All the animals said, "We will help you make some bread if we can have some of the bread." Mother Pig said, "Who will help me plow a field to grow some wheat to make the bread?" The horses said, "We will help you plow the field." Then the horses went and plowed a field. When the field was plowed, Mother Pig said, "Now who will help me plant the wheat?" The birds said, "We will help you plant the field." And the birds went and buried seeds in the field. When the seeds had grown into tall wheat plants, Mother Pig asked the farm animals, "Who will help me harvest the wheat?" The goats said, "We will help you harvest." And the goats went and harvested all the wheat. When the wheat was harvested, Mother Pig asked the farm animals, "Who will help me grind the wheat?" The cows said, "We will help you grind." And they went and ground all the wheat. When the wheat was ground, Mother Pig asked the farm animals, "Who will help me bake the bread?" The mice said, "We will help you bake the bread." and they went and baked all the wheat into a loaf of bread that rose bigger than the big red barn in the middle of the farm. When the bread was ready to eat, the farm animals lined up to get their share. Mother Pig plucked off a crumb for each animal. All of the animals groaned and shouted, "Why are you giving us so little?" Mother Pig shouted back angrily, "I did most of the work, so I'm entitled to most of the bread. Plus, I could have chosen someone else to do your job. You should be grateful to get anything at all." And all the farm animals except Mother Pig lived abjectly ever after. This is my addition. This is Mrs. Pig's statement. "My ancestors came eons ago and left me the land, the machinery to plant and harvest, the machinery to mill and bake, and the means of distribution. Surely I should be compensated for all that I have contributed." The farmstead decided to vote, and all the animals made their desires known. It seems a majority heartily supported Mrs. Pig, as she taught them in school that they had to pay tuition for, as she owned the building, and she paid the teachers, which was one of the piglets. Anyway, the animals understood that if they worked hard and saved their pennies, they too could own acres of ground, travel in style, and most important, have other animals work for them at a fair price. In fact, the best and brightest could have animals working for animals working for animals, and they would get a portion of everything each and every animal earned. Thus, they were building on the vision of the ancient Egyptians and their pyramids. The vision of being rich and comfortable made them feel much better as they ate their meager share of porridge and crowded their children into the one-room hovel they rented from the pigs. Not the end by a long shot. Comments? Okay, capitalism is seen by, kind of influenced by 1984 and Brave New World. Our affirmation, "Feel That" by Gwen Matthews. Feel that each breath, every inhale, every exhale. We are living, breathing, connected. We are the whole, complete, beautiful selves that we were born to be. Feel that in your bones, in your muscles, in your heart, and in your blood. That is the extraordinary you. The you who was born for this time, this place, this moment. Feel that? The struggle, the worry, the pain, the loss, the grief. It is still you. You are still whole, complete, beautiful, extraordinary. Feel that. Joys and concerns? We want to remember Buffalo once again, and that's what we'll be talking about a little bit. If I find my sermon, I think I explained earlier to some that with the problems I have with the computer, I walked off today without my presentation. So I'm going to try and pull it up what I saved on the computer, so we'll see how that works. It also has some things I've downloaded. 18 years old, has an AR-15. He was able to buy it legally in New York, but he had an expanded magazine, which was not legal, so he went out of state and bought that. Everyone that he killed was black. He had put his manifesto out. He's told everybody, he even told some people before he did it, he was going to do it, and I'm not sure what the response was there, whether anybody tried to raise the alarm or not. And then he quoted the manifesto that everybody is quoting. This is why we're getting to Tucker Carlson, about how the United States is being changed intentionally by the Democratic Party, who is bringing in minorities, foreigners, to outvote and outpopulate the white race. The white race is in danger of being exterminated. This is what's being pushed and what's being told to the people, and I'm sure a lot of people in Dark County believe that. This young man decided to do something about it, and he is not the first. If you remember the massacre in Texas, where the man came in and said that there were too many Mexicans in Texas and they were taking over the country, the state, and he killed, I think, 18 there. It just goes on and on and on. When is this going to stop? All right, that's our national joys and concerns. The Ukraine, that goes on and on. I don't know what the answer is going to be there, but we want to light a candle for them and for the nations that are taking care of them. Poland, Yugoslavia, which is no longer, but Romania, Slovenia, all those little countries are taking in refugees right and left. And some of them, interestingly enough, Poland, for instance, if you remember, built fences. Hungary built fences to keep the Syrians and the Palestinians and the Africans out, but they will let the Ukrainians in. Something about tribes, something about if they look like me and talk like me and act like me, they're friends. If they look different from me, they're the enemy. That is one of the things we are being taught. So, anything closer to home, Mike?
I would say with Memorial Day approaching, if you've not driven around the town, you'll see banners honoring our veterans. That was a local initiative and involved lots of people, not just in terms of getting the idea together, but I think the Honor Society was involved in collecting the money for it, and then obviously volunteers putting those banners up.
Yep.
I don't believe they're all here yet, but take a drive around town, a perfect weekend, and next weekend as we honor, first of all, remember all of those, and particularly our veterans who served the country.
And whose history and image and service is sometimes misused, I think. We want to be patriots, we are patriots, and the argument is who is more patriotic, those who want to keep the original premise of the United States, or maybe we need to talk about what is the original premise of the United States, what does the Statue of Liberty stand for. I get more and more concerned as time goes by. Maybe it's the old guys, the old person's thing about everything was better in the old days, but I don't think so. Oh, I need to talk about, I have a concern. Everybody knows Curly? Mm-hmm. Curly, I think I told you the story before. Hurt his leg last year, took him to Ohio State, spent a lot of time and effort recuperating, put him out on the track for training this year, hurt his leg again. So Curly is pretty much out of the racing business, at least for a year, and he might possibly get better. The chances are pretty slim. What to do with retired racehorses? They used to sell them to the Amish for cart horses, for buggy horses, because the Amish, as much as they pretend to be non-competitive and everything else, when you take the Amish out and they go to church on Sunday, whoever has the fastest, best-looking horse is the top Amish in the community. So they seek out retired racehorses, and they want to know the prodigy, they want to know the times, they want to know the works. The trouble with Curly is, with a bad leg, he's not going to last long racing for the Amish. So that was out. The other thing is, he's not a saddle horse. There's nothing really you can do with him. So the other is you sell him to the auction house. And right now that means either the glue factory or the meat factory. In other words, he goes for slaughter. Curly's a friend. I could not do that, so I'm taking him home to my house. My neighbor has a 5-acre pasture he's feeding out cattle, so we turned Curly out in there to see how he would do. He wants to be the top dog or the top horse, so he chases the cattle around. He doesn't maliciously do it. He doesn't chase them too much. But the problem we're having is when they come up to eat, he wants to keep them from eating. He tries to get their food, but he won't let them into the place where their feeding trough is.
It's called a supply chain disruption.
Yes, exactly. So what I had to do, well, actually when I turned him out, you can't see very well here, but if you look, his holder's gone. He went out and rubbed his holder off on a tree somewhere. So now I had to buy another holder, plus I can't find his dang holder, so I gotta go look for that. Plus, I can't catch him because he doesn't have a holder to grab a hold of.
Tim, how old is your horse?
He's 4 this year.
4.
So he would have at least 2 or 3 more years of racing. And Curly is a good horse. She's one of the best horses my partner ever had. In the 2 years that he raced, he made like $55,000 in winnings, which I'm supposed to get half of that, but when you deduct feeding, training, veterinary bills, it turned out to be about $5,000. But still, that paid for the price that I paid for the horse, so I'm still ahead. You're kind of getting a long lesson on this, but anyway. So what I had to do we had to open the barn and chase him into his stall. So here's Curly serving penitence for chasing the cattle. Now I'm trying to figure out some way, we may have to do this every time, is chase him into a stall, because he'll go into a stall on his own, but I would rather be able to go out and catch him, because I brush him, curry him, I'm trying to break him to saddle, I'm throwing a blanket over his back and putting an empty saddle up. If I get a ladder to stand by him, I can probably get on him eventually. All right, so that's my joys and concerns, the joy of having a horse again, the concern of being able to manage an animal like that, the responsibility. So I'll light a candle for Curly's recovery. If we get lucky, being out on pasture, he'll be able to race next year, so we'll find out. Any other? Yes?
Actually a concern, my sister-in-law has COVID, and she's not, I think she's getting better, but she got really hit pretty hard. Then it looks like my grandson has it, and being young and healthy, he's doing all right. But and now my brother-in-law has it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and they all had their shots. However, here now the Omicron and the derivatives of Omicron are not as virulent as the original Delta. It goes up into the sinuses and so forth, and it's like a really bad cold, whereas before it was in the lungs and people were dying. People are still dying.
Yes.
But here's maybe the good part of that. If you have had your shots and you have had it either before your shots or after the shots, you get what's called hybrid immunity, which allows you to be a little bit more freer like it was prior to COVID-19. But I just wish people would stop being stupid, get your shots, just nationally, everybody just wear a mask for a couple of months and shots, etc. Maybe we get rid of this, so that's my concern. But it ain't gonna happen because we have people who disregard and put down Fauci. We still have that garbage, so you know, maybe we ought to say adios to the people who get it tonight because they didn't get your shots.
And that is happening. If you look at the ICU population, 90%, 95% are unvaccinated. Those are the ones who are in the ICU. Those are the ones who are dying. I would encourage all of you to wear your masks. The new variants in the East Coast and the West Coast is up 70, 80%. Kids are starting to get it. Even though you have higher protection if you've had it, if you've watched TV, Stephen Colbert got it twice. He was back, and then a week later, it knocked him down again and he was off. Jimmy Kimmel got it twice, and he's still off. This is nothing, even if you get the mild form when you've been protected, it's nothing to mess around with. And if you pay attention to the news, there's what they call a long haul COVID. There are symptoms that last, some of these people have lasted for years, 2 and 3 years of whenever COVID started, they still aren't past all their symptoms. So even if you recover and get back to a normal life, you may still have problems. So, as I say every week, I'm the only person, I'm about 1 out of 20 or 30 in Walmart that wears a mask, 1 out of 20 or 30 in Kroger that wears a mask. And I would encourage you to wear a mask just for your own protection, but also for our protection. When you come here, don't give it to us.
So. One more thing here is that one other symptom of this new variant, although it's a head cold thing, is extreme diarrhea.
Oh my.
And that's what my sister-in-law and my grandson has. So if everybody here has probably had diarrhea, think of it extremely. So you know like this. Let's go, folks.
That can be a real danger as far as dehydration too. Yeah, I mean diarrhea is nothing to sneeze at, so to speak. Okay, let's go back to, I told you, let me play this and then I'll pull up my thing on the computer and we'll see what we can do. If it will play. This is the Tucker Carlson compilation of his feelings when a black person killed a bunch of people and a white person killed a bunch of people. So we'll see if it'll play. There was quite a contrast. When the white person killed a bunch of people, he was mentally ill. It wasn't his fault. He should be taken care of, and it's the society's fault for not taking care of the mentally ill. When the black person, this is in Waukesha, Wisconsin, drove down through a parade and killed a bunch of people, then it's a Black Lives Matter plot. It was part of an evil plot from the word go, and continues on. Well, maybe it's not going to play. This is kind of what I was going through at home with the slow load. We'll try this one and see if this one will play. What these do, both of these, if they would go, gives a nice succinct overview of everything I'm going to talk about, but I still can, if I can pull it up, I can go ahead and talk about them. Okay, I was on Facebook yesterday, and actually it was yesterday, and some of my friends, in quotes, were dissing President Biden. So I asked about good Christians lamenting formula going to border babies. Have you heard about that? The formula shortage that's going on in the country. Some of the even congressional people, but many people on some of the networks were saying they're sending formula to the border and giving it to immigrants, and they're taking it away from our children. It's not a total sum, an equal sum game. It's not our kids are starving because we're giving it to them. But even if there was a sharing and everyone had to suffer, what they're telling you implicitly is babies that are coming over the border should be allowed to die because we aren't going to feed them. It's not our responsibility. They're here illegally, so that's their responsibility. So, yikes. The most benevolent were sorry for my ignorance. It seems gas, propane, milk, formula, the Ukraine, heat waves, and any other nameless problem you have are all Biden's fault. Plus, he got rich off of public service. That's what they told me. Being a congressman and a senator for all these years, he got unbelievably rich. Now, these are people that voted for the previous president, which, what are you going to say? So, I have no answers. I can't make any connections or corrections because they don't recognize my facts as facts. I can only suggest that a true American gentleman was a nice change. You can imagine how that went over. And I had people tell me that I would rather have a few snide insults and have the country on the right track as to what we have now. So we still have a disagreement about what the right track is. So let's get into our topic. I try not to be discouraged by the news, and thankfully every station has added a little feel-good item at the end of the broadcast to give us hope, and they are heartwarming. But they are individual to individual, or one person serving an anonymous group or saving desperate animals. And some of those are my favorite. If you've seen the starving dogs like I showed you before, the horse caught in a fence, the coyote, trapped in a trap that they let loose, those are heartwarming, and I can relate to those. For those who are not so nice to others, like let's take Buffalo, New York, a black neighborhood supermarket, a white teen wearing body armor with an AR-15 with a jumbo clip. This deluded pawn was shot 11 times by a retired security guard. A retired security guard was working there, pulled his service gun and shot this kid 11 times, emptied basically his entire clip. It had no effect because this kid was wearing body armor. That's what we're getting to now. And that guy was one of the ones that were killed. Obviously, there are some perpetrators who are really, truly mentally ill, who could kill or hurt innocent people without having a few screws loose. But for those who justify or minimize What are they thinking? Tucker Carlson stands out in this crowd, mostly because he has amassed the largest audience in TV history. They are old, they're uneducated, but they vote, and I can attest they are demons on Facebook. To be the object of their free-floating anger and disdain is an experience in itself. No facts dent their ardor, no civilities ameliorate their acidity. There seems to be no trace of empathy or pity in their demeanor. I, however, pity their experience of the world, soaked as it is in fear and judgmentalness. Be that as it may, these folks vote, and they vote for the voices that tell them what they want to hear, and maybe what they are afraid to hear. And not without reason. Their world is changing, and it's changing fast. The majority white race in the U.S. will be another minority by 2050. By 2050, the white people in America will be a plurality. That means they'll be the biggest minority. But heretofore, white people in America have been greater than 50%. After 2050, they will no longer be greater than 50%. This terrifies these people. They have had what we disparagingly call white privilege for generation after generation after generation. Kind of like Mrs. Pig. They own the means of production. They control the school boards. They control the zoning boards. They basically control the country. That will be changing. We have to ask, what choices do they have? What choices can they make? Do they reach out to the minorities and try to persuade them to their opinion? Or do they say the minorities are totally wrong, alien, subhuman, whatever you want to call it, and should not be here? The second is short-sighted. If you look at particularly the Latin influence, the Mexicans, the Haitians, the Cubans, they are very conservative people. They are very religious people. If someone would reach out to them and support them, they would probably become conservative voters, and many of them are conservative voters. That being a hallmark to me of a conservative voter is someone who votes against their own personal interest, which to the life of me, I do not understand. How someone, for example, in a union, whose job is protected by a union, whose wages are raised by a union, can vote against unions. That is a sign of whatever is going on in the world, which I've talked about before. So, all right. They will have to share the wealth unless they can undermine the power of the different ones. The others, the enemy, the subhuman, the not human, not real people, animals who don't have feelings or value. This is not a new technique. The powerful have used it to galvanize the masses since the first two tribes began competing for resources. And what happened to those resources? As soon as one tribe became dominant, the religious, the military, the political, the athletic, the attractive, the dominant, you pick one, took control of the land, the water, the seed, the calendar, the beasts of burden, and profits began. Surplus grain meant more laborers could be fed, not to grow more grain, but to build monuments, to clear more land, to staff an army, to study the skies, or the entrails of animals. You pick one. So, set about motivating the great spectator to do the bidding of the master class, you find a talking head, a powerful motivator with the appearance, the voice, the mannerisms to draw attention to the leaderless, the hopeless, the feckless. Social media, broadcasting messaging has amplified the reach of the host. Instead of a few, now unlimited numbers can tune in and still feel like they are being spoken to directly, one person to another person. And strangely enough, the message does not have to be coherent, truthful, or even believable. It just has to be repeated over and over and over with fervor and with conviction. And so we come to Tucker Carlson, or Tucker Swanson McNeil Carlson, a conventional upbringing with all the trappings of the white majority, including a college education and introduction to media jobs. This is a quote about his career from a few years ago. If we can figure out how an intelligent writer and conservative can go from writing National Magazine Award nominated articles to shouting about immigrants on Fox News, perhaps we can understand what is happening to this country, or at least to journalism. And this is in 2018, this was written. Tucker Carlson has a history of working for MSNBC, working for established regular outlets, but he never became popular. He never became a success in any of those jobs. He was just a workaday journalist who asked real questions and tried to write down and portray real answers. What happened was he made some snide remarks on one TV show that he was a co-host on, and that particular population who likes snide remarks and likes to see people insulted on television latched onto that, and his praise went up, so he decided to do it again. And then he did it again and again, and he got better at it and better at it. So if you've watched his TV program, which I never have, but I've watched clips, which I tried to download here for you, it's pretty incredible. He has a very accusatory, and he asks questions, open questions that have no answer, and that is his method of operation. He has a guest on and he tries to get them upset, off course. When they try to answer a regular question, he'll ask them questions that have no answers. And I had some examples here, which I can't pull up right now, but I'll get you some later. But anyway, he's made a great name for himself. He's pulled in a huge audience, and he spends 20 to 30 to 40 minutes sometimes on a diatribe against immigrants. And one of the great things that they're talking about is the Great Replacement. This is what it's called, the Great Replacement Theory. This has gone on for years, but it is really being boosted at the present time, and that is the basic danger. That is, and they ascribe it to George Soros, the Jews. Many times the Jews are accused of this. Now it's the Democratic Party as a whole is bringing people, remember the caravans, bringing people to the border and bringing them into the United States so they can overwhelm the voting population of the white Americans. Nothing makes any sense. The immigrants can't vote. They aren't legal. They can't get Social Security. If they get a fake Social Security number, it doesn't pan out, so they can't vote anyway, and they can't receive any Social Security benefits because they're not citizens and they don't have an actual Social Security number. They work at all these illegal jobs. Social Security taxes are subtracted from their wages, sent to the federal government, but there's nobody there, there's no real person there to draw that money out because the numbers are fake. There's no real name attached to it. So, but you can't explain this, or at least I can't explain it to people. So we go on, and it's built on, and it's built up, and it's added to every time you listen to them. And that's what people will quote to you. People quote to me, people that only watch Fox News, this is what they will tell you over and over again. So let me stop there. If I can get the things to play, I will show you the one contrast between the young man who killed all the people in New York and the young man who killed the people in Waukesha, Wisconsin. As they say, one was black and one was white. The contrast, and they pull clips from Tucker Carlson saying this person, the white person, was mentally ill, he should not be held accountable, it wasn't his fault, etc., etc. It's the Democrats' fault for making him upset about who he was and not giving him mental health. And then he turned to the black perpetrator in Wisconsin, and then it was a Black Lives Matter plot from the very beginning. George Soros had put him up to it. He was paid to do it. All these things that have no basis in reality whatsoever. And people are buying this. This is what scares me. this is what we need to be aware of. I'm not sure there's anything to do about it other than raise consciousness and vote. So, comments? Yes.
What you're describing, Jim, I believe looking at it from a Unitarian Universalist approach, if you will, we're all into social justice. And yet, on our pathway to social justice, there are so many obstacles that it seems like we're increasing every day and it's impossible to overcome. And if you bear me out just a second, I keep thinking about the word, maybe the problem is much deeper, obviously. But we know that people gravitate toward information sources that they want to believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're not discriminating when they get information. They're looking for something that says and amplifies what they already believe. So as you state, social media has amplified that and ramped it up so much that I do believe it's getting in the way of our country, our democracy, what have you. But how do we overcome that? If you look at the word information, semantically, with etymology, inform, okay? Part of that word is also form. So those who seek sources and parrot conspiracy theories are simply forming and they're forming others. In a traditional sense, inform is to gather information. Regardless of source, the user evaluates the quality and goes forth. And he uses that information, right? How are we going to get those two words united again to the word inform and information? But right now, it's simply parroting ugly conspiracy theories, mistruths, and everything is hyper-political. Where are we going with all this, particularly as we look at it from a social justice standpoint?
And you've heard me talk about this, and I will talk about it again. How do you learn to distinguish between what's being pushed on you, what's really true, what's the difference? How do you use the scientific method? How do you do constructive, thoughtful thinking and understanding? You can be taught this through education. What is part of the plan? You want to talk about conspiracy theories? What is the plan to take over the educational system? To turn the educational system away from professional teachers, from people who study education, who study how students learn, who study how kids learn, who study how information is processed, who study how information can be judged, whether it be truthful or false. These people are losing control of the educational system. Who's taking control? The people who are pushing the same theory, that everything is the fault of the other, everything is the fault of the enemy. This is not a new technique. This is what happened in every totalitarian country that's been taken over. I don't care whether it's Venezuela, Russia, Germany in the 30s. If you look back at the history, none of this started with killing Jews at the beginning, when they started out by saying Jews weren't citizens. Then they started out by saying Jews couldn't own businesses. Then they started out by saying Jews couldn't worship, couldn't have services. They just progressed a little bit at a time until people got used to that, and then they added something else on. So when it came time to put them into the cattle cars and send them to the extermination camps, people pretended it wasn't happening because they were only Jews. They are taking control of our education system now. They're telling you you can't read these books, you can't read those books. They're stopping kids from learning. They're trying to make kids ignorant so they can control them. I really think this is ALEC. There's a group of people who write laws for states to pass, and then states just read the law and pass it without actually understanding what it's about. The Ohio's legislature is full of these kind of laws. When they tell you that transgender kids can't play sports, when they tell you transgender kids can't go into the bathroom of their choice, think about that for a minute. If you have a kid who's dressed like a woman and he can't go into a woman's bathroom, what's going to happen when he goes into the man's bathroom dressed like a woman? Is that going to make any sense? It's just, the whole thing is, when you stop and think about it common sense-wise, it's ludicrous. So let me see if this it looks like this might play. Let's see once.
It's not a blueprint for a new extremist political movement. A black nationalist BLM supporter drove an SUV through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. It was a slaughter. Because a mentally ill teenager murdered strangers, you cannot be allowed to express your political views. And if indiscriminately murdering women and children at a Christmas parade isn't terrorism, then what exactly is it? There's no obvious ideological lesson to draw from all this, if that hasn't stopped the usual power-hungry morons from trying to leverage human pain for political advantage. It's still interesting to know a lot more about the man who apparently committed this crime. Frank James posted black supremacist rants on his YouTube channel. The only thing that could make what happened in Charlottesville worse would be if we allowed a small number of people in power to make America less tolerant and less free in its aftermath. Maybe if the entire news media tells you every day of your life that America hates you because of your skin color, why wouldn't we see more crimes like this? What he wrote does not add up to a manifesto. It's not a blueprint for a new extremist political movement, a black nationalist feeling. Manifesto.
All right, it's better if you can see him flipping one picture to another, but if you can follow his arguments, the first argument was always why the white person was not really to blame for what he did and why the black person was evil because of what he did. This goes on every night on Fox News. It's not just Tucker Carlson. Those groups where they have 3 or 4 people speaking together, you can pull up all kinds of quotes and snippets of information that go over it and over it and over it again. I don't know what the answer is. There's a danger because people who have the sense to choose what they listen to and what they don't listen to. Al Gore tried to start some kind of liberal radio station. MSNBC has tried to be a liberal TV station. It doesn't work because liberals don't watch that kind of stuff. They don't want to hear propaganda. They don't want to hear junk just poured into them just because it excites them, because they don't get mad at people. They understand that people have different opinions, and some people are to be pitied and some people are to be helped if they understand incorrectly. They don't rise up in anger and march down with their pitchforks and torches because they think about what they're hearing and they think about what they're doing. So this is going to go on and on. Like I say, every week, if you have suggestions, something you'd like to hear about, something you'd like to have somebody speak on, if you get tired of listening to me on my pulpit here, please let me know. I don't do this because I'm pushing it. I do it because I truly am worried about what direction the country is going. We are basically committed already, so we're kind of speaking to the choir, so to speak. But I don't know any other way to try and get the message out. So that ends that. Offering. As usual, something in, something out. And we are going to hear Lombard Street. None of this is working out. Evidently the slow load that I was having from home, it must be happening here too, because you saw the little hourglass thing going around. It was trying to load, and remember before, anytime we hit it, it played right out. So I'm not sure what's going on. So Technology is a blessing and a curse. So, our closing hymn is 168, One More Step. One more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We will sing one more song. What an appropriate hymn, One More Step. All right, extinguishing the chalice. Each of us ministers to a weary world, by Darcy Roque. There is too much hardship in this world not to find joy every day. There is too much injustice in this world not to right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world not to heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. I'll see you again. Noel Coward, 1921. Has anybody heard this? From Bittersweet. Sounds like something we've heard before, doesn't it?
It's a little too much practice.
All right, that ends our service. First Universalist Church in New Madison. Stay safe, wear your mask. Please wear your mask. We do not need any more sickness, and it is coming towards Ohio. It's starting on each coast, but it's heading in this direction. Also, monkeypox. Anybody hear about monkeypox?
Yes.
you don't have to worry about that so much. I think that's a lot harder to get. So if you see somebody with pustules all over themselves, just stay away. We have the coffee cake from yesterday or last Sunday is still here. There's a few donuts here and the coffee is on. Think about if you can come a week from Saturday to the Garst Museum for a get-together and then a meal afterwards. All right, have a good week.
Jay, the guy that's our director, course director, he also has a band.
Oh, yeah.
If your band would ever stop getting together, or you got tired of driving, and I think that's over on Dayton, where you go. Oh, you live in Dayton, so that's where you're at. This would be, I didn't know, yeah, that this would be too far to be drive. It's
Probably don't even.
yeah, that, well, I just was thinking, yeah, he has a chorus and a band, I would chorus, and, the band, we perform with the band sometimes, and then they have their own performances. He directs.
It was just over 2 years ago that Harry a man in Christchurch, New Zealand, walked into 2 mosques and began shooting the men, women and children who had gathered in them to pray. When he was done, 51 people lay dead, 40 more were wounded. The killer left behind an 87-page manifesto titled The Great Replacement, in which he argued that the white race was dying out, being invaded and replaced by non-white immigrants. A few months later, that manifesto helped inspire a Texas man to walk into an El Paso with an assault weapon and begin shooting. He killed 23 people and wounded 23 more. It was, the New York Times reported, the deadliest anti-Latino attack in modern American history. And like the Christchurch shooter, the El Paso killer too cited the white supremacist Great Replacement theory, writing that he was fighting the Hispanic invasion of Texas. These murders came 2 years after white nationalists Jews will not replace this. And a year after synagogues
It's really weird.